going on, everybody? Good morning. Gonna start today off with the launch, boy. You ready? You ready for that launch, boy? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Oh, it's still set to only emote. Hold on. How do we shut that off? I forget how to shut it off. There we go. There's the button. There we go. Good morning. Alright, starting today off with the launch, dudes. Let's do this. We got the SpaceX cast up right here. Rockets are going on, that's what. Yes. Is very nice. Very nice. Here, let's switch us over. There it is. Alright, so we got a Starlink mission here. This is a Falcon 9 going out of Vandenberg Air Force Base. This is, what is it, Starlink 38? I lost track of the Starlink missions, man. That happens so often. But that, you know, that doesn't mean that it isn't awesome. No hat? No, bros, I haven't used a hat in about 2 weeks. What do you think? What do you think? I got a new haircut. Check out my new freaking haircut. Yeah? Unsure, but it's 4:11. There you go. Well, it's noontime though. It's not 4:11. What's wrong with you? That was a joke. How are you doing? I'm alright.
Also, you on WeatherNet.
About to be better.
Pretty good.
Look it up. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
Is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Devlin, nice.
Good morning, it's Friday, February 25th, and you're looking at a
got
live
AT.
view of Falcon 9 as
AT
it
at
awaits
the
its
helm.
9:12 a.m. Pacific time launch from Space Launch Complex 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base. My name is Andy Tran, and I'm joining you this morning from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California,
AT.
as we launch another 50 Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit. This marks our 8th launch of 2022, second launch this week, and the second launch from Vandy this month. Due to the increase in our launch cadence and as a result of the hard work of our teams, today's mission is the fastest launch-to-launch at Vandenberg Space Force Base for SpaceX to date, having supported the NROL 87 and Starlink missions all within the same calendar month. If you've been following SpaceX and Starlink, you might already know that Starlink is a constellation of multiple satellites that orbit the planet at about 550 kilometers.
Once a week,
Because Starlink does not
crazy.
rely on traditional ground infrastructure, it is ideally suited for areas of the globe where connectivity has typically been a challenge or non-existent, such as rural or remote communities. Most recently, Starlink went live in Brazil and Bulgaria and is now available in 29 global markets. So a big congratulations to everyone on the Starlink team for these additional rollouts to Latin America and Europe. A bit later in the webcast, we'll talk about how our team is also helping residents of the island nation of Tonga reconnect after a volcanic eruption earlier this year. For now, let's take a closer look at the rocket supporting today's mission.
No, they're at all different
What you
times,
see on your
dude.
screen is a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket named after the 9 Merlin engines at the bottom of the first stage. Almost 70% of the entire rocket is comprised of the first stage, and its job is to accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space. The rocket on your screen may not
So that's soot. This is all soot down here, but it looks like there's some coking going on the side of the launch pad right there. It's all different colors. This is the gray is paint though. I don't think it's covered in soot, but I could be wrong.
The Sentinel-6A microflylic mission and a past Starlink mission. We are going to be attempting to recover the first stage for the 4th time on our drone ship that you see on screen. This one's named Of Course I Still Love You.
I can
Pilot
rewind it. He
base.
said it while I was
Merlin
talking.
engines at the bottom of the
Listen
first
to it.
stage. Almost 70% of the entire rocket is comprised of the first stage, and its job is to accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space. The rocket on your screen may not look very big, but in fact our two-stage rocket stands 70 meters tall, which makes it almost as tall as the Statue of Liberty in New York City. Today's first stage will be flying for the 4th time, previously having supported NASA's DART, or Double Asteroid Redirection Test Mission, the Sentinel-6A Microflylic mission, and a past Starlink mission. We are going to be attempting to recover the first stage for the 4th time on our drone ship that you see on
Let me
screen.
get us back up to live.
Although there is no...
I'm going to fast forward a little bit. What was that question? Why don't they just paint... Well, it's painted white because of thermals, dude. I mean, amongst other things. There are other reasons. That paint... I think white paint is lighter, I think. But I could be pulling that one out of my tail. How big are these satellites? Dining room table? JF? Dining room table. But it's like if you took the legs off of a table and you just stacked a bunch of the flat table surfaces on top of each other. Yeah, the Starlinks are stacked like a deck of cards inside of the fairing. There's like 2 decks, and it'd be like if you had a rubber band around the cards and then cut the rubber band, and the satellites would just... It's cool. If they show the deployment, it would be pretty neat. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
That we can load more of it onto the rocket. In addition to these 2 propellants, we also use the chemical TTAB, or triethylaluminum and triethylborane, as an ignition source. The combustion of RP1 and LOX makes the rocket go, but it's TTAB that sets the match and uses the propellant. To sets the match to the propellant mix. If we're using a barbecue analogy, you can think of RP1 and LOX as charcoal and the oxygen in the air, and the lighter is TTAB. And until you light that match, you won't have flame to cook your food or, for our purposes, lift off.
Well, I'll tell you what,
we fill
boy,
the LOX into the first and second stages to
accessories.
full as close to T0 as possible to minimize how long the LOX could start to warm up. This is similar to fueling your combustion car. You put your handle in, turn it on, and when it's full, the pump will automatically shut off. And as you can see on screen, the weather in Vandenberg is looking pretty good.
Stage 1, RP1
typically,
load
we get a lot of clouds in Vandenberg, but the weather today is very favorable for liftoff. In addition to the weather, the range, vehicle, and satellites are all also trending green for an on-time liftoff at 9:12 Pacific time. If for some reason we don't lift off today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, about 20 minutes earlier than today. As you may have heard on the news, the Starlink teams responded to a volcanic catastrophe and tsunami earlier this year in the island nation of Tonga. For those of you who may not be familiar with Tonga, it's comprised of 169 islands and is located in the South Pacific Ocean, directly south of Samoa, in a very remote part of the world. Since the natural disasters earlier this year, the Starlink team was able to provide internet service to connect remote villages in Tonga that had...
Yes, dude, there was a Vandenberg launch like 3 weeks ago, dude. Yeah, Starlink is taking over Vandenberg.
Internet connectivity is sometimes unavailable. We hope to be able to help more communities in need like this in the future. If you're interested and want to know more about Starlink or want to see if its service is available in your area, head on over to starlink.com. As we continue to march down to T0, just under T-minus 5 minutes here, the next major milestone you're about to see on screen involves the transporter erector, or the TE, which is the truss structure next to the Falcon 9 vehicle.
Watch
in preparation for retraction, the clamp arms underneath the fairing will start to open up, and then that structure next to Falcon 9 will begin to retract away to its pre-launch position. So this view right now, right underneath the fairing halves, you can see those clamp arms. In a few seconds here, we'll start to see those open up. The TE is also the structure that provides liquids, gases, and electrical connections to the second stage, as well as air conditioning to the payload fairing. And on screen right now, you can see that those clamp arms are indeed opening up. It takes a few seconds for them to open up all the way. And once they are fully open, we'll start to see that truss structure next to Falcon 9 open up, or not open up, retract to its pre-launch position. There it goes. Closer to T0, the strongback will continue to retract further away and provide clearance for Falcon 9 to lift off.
Okay, animal, don't
At this point, both the first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen.
So this is an older style strongback for SpaceX. It's one of the oldest ones that they still use. There's 3 of them. There's one at 40, one at 39, and then this one at Slick 4 at Vandenberg. The reason why they retract this one is because it's not capable of doing the throwback. So the one at 40 and 39A, when the Falcon 9 launches, it flicks away, which is honestly pretty ridiculous because those strongbacks aren't small. That thing is very big. I mean, Falcon 9 is 3.7 meters in diameter. That thing is way bigger than that. Part of the reason why the strongbacks throw back and why this one retracts is because if you look down in this area here, it gets kind of hot. You can tell because some of the paint got scorched off. It gets a little warm right in this area here. Not here or here so much, but right in this area. So that they get it away. They move this thing away so it doesn't one, hit the rocket when it lifts off, and two, hot. What are the yellow bars sticking out of the top of the strongback? That's the fairing cradle. Entropy, they basically have ratchet straps sitting on arms, dude. And the ratchet straps, they can pull the ratchet strap taut and it holds the fairing in place. Yeah, it's just a fairing cradle, dude. Because the fairing is actually pretty damn flimsy. It's only strong when it's standing up like that. And the bottom of the rocket is fixed with something? Yeah, there's 4 hold down points. You can kind of see them. It's kind of behind the UI. There's 4 hold down points. If we're looking at the top of the rocket like this, there's one here, one here, one here, and one here. 12, 3, 6, and 9. That's the only thing that holds the Falcon 9 to the pad. There's 4 hold down points, and that's it. But when the rocket is being moved, when it's being moved on the on this crawlerway, I guess, it has a cradle right there for the inner stage. It has the cradle right here for the second stage, and then there's the fairing cradle up there. All of the strongbacks have these. It has 1, 2, and 3, and then the 4 hold down points. This is a configurable launch pad. You could launch Falcon Heavy from this. It's capable of doing it. That vent right there is SpaceX getting the fuel lines empty. Fuel and oxidizer lines are being emptied out of the strongback. The reason why they're being empty is because, like I said, gonna get a little bit hot right here. Hey, nice shot. You don't want fuel on the launch pad where the rocket exhaust is gonna be because it'll explode. Yeah, you don't want that. So what that vent was right there was them getting all the fuel and oxidizer out of the strongback.
LD is go for launch.
Launch director says he's go.
And there it is. All systems are go for launch. Let's listen in to terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our 50 Starlink satellites into orbit.
Go and throttle up.
AC, light the candle, baby. 20 seconds. Sound suppressors should turn on here in a moment.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Polar orbit, Taradra.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff of Falcon 9, Starlink 4-11.
Look good. Everything looks real good. Perfect. Let it fly. A little bit of ice coming off of it.
M1D chamber pressures are nominal.
Yeah, strongback got a little hot again, Fractal, like I was telling you. Everything looked good. Oh, roll program. Okay. Falcon is
T plus 42 seconds into flight.
Turning
Falcon
south.
9 has successfully lifted off from
Power telemetry
Vandenberg
nominal.
Space Force Base, carrying our stack of 50 Starlink satellites to orbit. And moments ago, we began to throttle down the engines on the first stage in preparation for Max Q. This is where the vehicle will experience the highest amount of pressures during ascent.
should be able to see Lompo.
Max Q.
Top right of your screen here.
And there was Max Q. So we have a couple of events happening in quick succession in about a minute. First up, we'll have main engine cutoff, also known as MECO, followed by stage separation, and then second engine start one, also known as SES1. First up, main engine cutoff. This is where all 9 engines on the first stage will shut down in order to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation.
There's the
During
runway.
stage separation, the first and second stages will separate from
right
one
here.
another. The first stage will
And
make
back
its
engine
way
started.
back to our targeted landing zone. In this case, it's the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, currently waiting in the Pacific Ocean. And the second stage will continue its journey with the third event, Second Engine Start 1. This is where the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and propel the second stage along with the Starlink satellites into orbit.
So, fellas, note if you look at the exhaust on Falcon 9, see how it's kind of asymmetric? That's because this first stage is kind of pitched up, if you will. If you picture like an airplane flying through the air, it's kind of pitched up. And you see it was actually leveling out. They're doing that to get that second stage higher up in the air. Stand by for separation. There's the stiffener
Miko.
right here. You should see that pop off here on the second stage.
Stage separation confirmed.
Watch right here. Good staging.
MVAC startup.
Good. Stiffener ring set was perfect. Everything looked real good, man. Stand by for the fairing. This will pop off. Watch.
So we did have successful main engine
Separation
cutoff,
confirmed.
See ya.
stage separation, second
right,
engine
Sushi.
start
Yep.
of the Merlin vacuum engine, and you just saw on screen that the
Drifter.
fairing halves have been
Nani?
deployed from the top of our second stage. We've been flying reflown fairing halves since 2019, and today's fairings are flight proven, and we're going to be attempting to recover them when they return
Look.
to Earth as well.
Santa Barbara right there.
So as expected, we got some phenomenal footage
Malibu.
of ascent.
That's crazy, dude.
A couple of views on screen right
Look at
now.
how
On the
clear it
left-hand
is.
side of your screen is the first stage. It's a view from the top of our first stage,
Santa
looking
Monica's
down.
like right there. That's
Its journey,
nuts to me,
it's
man.
heading back
Look, you
to
can
our
see
drone
it
ship
right
in the
there.
Pacific Ocean, and on the right-hand side of your screen is a view of that Merlin vacuum engine, glowing
view.
red hot, continuing to carry our stack of Starlink satellites
When
to
I
low
say
Earth
Mally,
orbit.
you say boo. Mally, boo.
Again, these are live views. In order for the first stage to make its way back to our drone ship, it needs to execute two burns.
Boo!
The first is an entry burn where 3 of the engines on the first stage will reignite, and this will help to slow down the stage as it re-enters the upper parts of the atmosphere. The second burn for the first stage is the landing burn. This is a single engine burn that will bring the vehicle's speed down rapidly in order to land on our
Is this a
drone ship.
freaking musket? Kind of.
We're still a few minutes away from those entry and landing burns. For now, we're enjoying some great views of both
You'll
stages.
get the fairings back, Ilya. Yeah. They put parachutes on the fairings, and the fairing just goes into the water, and it floats. They made the fairings float. They made them into freaking boats. They just float around, and then another boat will go and fish it out. Dude, it's really freaking cool, man. I'm really into it. I love this thing. This is a great rocket.
Compared to the engines on the first stage, which are
Both
actually
vehicles are on
optimized
nominal
to
trajectories.
perform at sea level.
What's the
They're-
deal
they
with
can
fairing
produce about
recoveries?
190,000.
They don't catch them anymore. They waterize the fairings. So I'm serious. They put a liner on the outside of the fairing that's thermally resistant and water resistant. So the fairings, they just parachute down. They don't even try to bother catching them with boats. They just let them go into the water, and like a capsule, and then they just pick it up out of the water. That works way better. They changed the positive pressure vents on the fairing. There used to be, like, if the fairing is right here, there used to be 2 on each side. Now they're 2 up at the top, so it doesn't sink. Look at, you can see the whole Baja Peninsula right there. That's really freaking cool, man. See, there's all Baja right there. There's the LA Basin right there. That's Los Angeles. Long Beach is right there. Oh, that's really cool. That's my favorite
first
part. The
stage and
view,
help it
dude.
land as well.
Seems much simpler than the boat net. Best part is no part, dude.
We're just under
yours
45
is,
seconds away
right?
from the
Right.
first of those 2 burns, the entry burn on the first stage. Again, it is a 3-engine burn to slow the stage down before hitting
bad.
the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
I agree, Andrew. The boats with nets were kind of nuts, but they were cool. This is a California launch, Zelda crap. This thing is launching south out of Vandenberg Air Force Base.
It's continuing to go smoothly for our
This
second
mission is
stage.
up in Vandenberg is about 100 miles northwest of Los Angeles. That's the U.S.'s West Coast launch site. you can kind of see it right there, but you can see the whole west coast of the U.S. and Mexico. There's the supersonic retro propulsion. Falcon 9's coming back down into the atmosphere, and it's slowing itself down with its rocket engines, but the rocket engines are also pushing the entry heat out of the way. It's my favorite part.
This burn is expected to last about 20 seconds.
Favorite. The always efficient flamethrower.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
My favorite.
And with that, that is a successful entry burn. We have one more burn to go on the first stage in about a minute.
Yeah, this one's going south.
Is safe.
It's kind of going along the west coast.
After the landing burn ends and we attempt our landing on our first stage, we're going to be listening for the call out for SECO, also known as second engine cutoff 1, and then a confirmation of good orbit. For today's mission, we are going to be having 2 coast phases. So after we shut off our second stage engine that you see on screen,
Audrey, the all-new Ice Cube system.
And then we'll actually relight the engine for a few seconds and then coast again before we deploy the satellites about T+1.
Supersonic is faster than transonic? That's correct. Hypersonic is the best, though. All right.
So we did lose video footage of the first stage.
Look.
This can sometimes happen as the stage is traveling pretty quickly, but we do
Acquisition
hear
of signal,
callouts
South
that
Texas.
You can see the
It's
salt
continuing
continuing
Terminal guidance.
It's crazy.
to make its way to
I
our
can't
drone
believe
ship.
the views. It's the best. Ludasonic. Ludicrous Sonic.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
All right, here we go. Shot on the drone ship. They
And
sprayed
here's
the
the one
deck
landing
of the
burn.
drone ship down with water to
Of
protect
our drone
the
ship,
metal.
we just heard the call out that the stage 1 landing burn has started.
No, it's not far.
So if we
not
are
far
successful,
enough south,
this
Sean.
will be the 4th time that this booster has successfully landed.
All right, camera's starting to rumble. Come on. Come on.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Satellite link. Nice.
Hearing callouts that we did get the landing legs deployed. Waiting for audio or
not
visual
good. They don't
confirmation
got
of
a lot
that
of
first
bars out
stage.
there, but
And
that looks
there
good.
it is,
Landing confirmed.
right in the middle of our drone ship.
Seco 1.
That is a successful first stage landing, the
Dude,
4th
that's-
for this particular first stage booster.
That's pretty close to center.
So we did hear call out.
That's pretty damn close to center.
Second
So,
engine cutoff of the
not bad.
vacuum engine.
Not bad.
And that was the
And
call out we were waiting.
GNC calls nominal orbital insertion. We are A-OK. Hell yeah. Man, you guys don't know how easy that looks. How easy they make that look. That's not simple to do. I
Also known
can't
as
stress
Seco
that
2,
enough.
which is scheduled to start around the T+ 53-minute mark. From there, we're going to have payload deploy occur just after the T+ 1 hour mark. Until then,
Could've
we're going
caught
to
that
take
one
a
with
short break,
chopsticks.
and we'll see you all back here in about 45 minutes. Until then, sit back and enjoy the Space Jams, and we'll see you soon.
Space Jams. So if we can go back to that map view, here's the trajectory. So it launched out of Lompoc, Vandenberg Air Force Base, and then the thing's going on a southeasterly trajectory here. That's where the second stage is. That's where the first stage is. The first stage landed. It landed kind of down by Cabo. No, Cabo's down further. This peninsula in Mexico is called the Baja Peninsula, right? And it kind of landed next to it. It went past San Diego. San Diego's right there. Tijuana's right there. Second stage is going further down. So Shaw, you know where's Panama? Panama's over here. So you have Mexico right here, and you have Guatemala, San Salvador, it's right there, and then Honduras. Panama's down here, and then you have the top of Colombia right there where it goes into South America. El Salvador, yeah. I always get El and San confused. San Salvador is the capital. Yeah, that exactly. Belize is over here. There's Cuba right there. Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico's right there. Jamaica's right there. There's the Bahamas and obviously Florida. Florida. That's right. Costa Rica's right there too. So that's all Central America here. It's way too far north to get near that. Florida. That's right. Panama. Yeah. So, yeah, this thing went southeast out of Vandenberg, kind of followed the coastline. The coastline turns, though. But, yeah, here, let's get us up live here. There's the live shot. So this is what's called a polar trajectory, guys. So a polar trajectory is a type of orbit where the orbital inclination is it's basically 90 degrees, meaning that if you tried to draw a line of this orbit, right, like on a globe, right, it would go over the North and the South Pole. If you looked at it comparatively to the equator, the angle there where the rocket passes over the equator, it'd be going perpendicular to the equatorial plane of the Earth. I think that's the right way to say that. That sounded way cooler, that's for sure. So now I know people are asking, well, if it's going polar, why did the thing take a left out of Vandenberg? Because it didn't take a left at Albuquerque. That's the real thing. No. So see, you'd think that a polar trajectory would go due south, but if you launch due south out of Vandenberg, because the Earth is spinning, you're gonna end up in an orbit that's either past polar or not enough. The reason why they kind of shoot it off and it goes down to the left, like down to the southeast, and why it follows the coast of Mexico, is because that is them doing a coplanar burn on ascent. It's a dogleg trajectory to make sure that Falcon 9 is compensating for the fact that it launched from a part of the Earth that's spinning. Well, obviously most parts of the Earth are spinning, but if you launch from like a higher inclination, you launch from the North Pole, your relative velocity is not going to be as much. So they launched out and went down this way to compensate for the fact that Earth is spinning, and that should get them into a perfect polar orbit. Loss of signal, ST. No, everybody's spinning. It's a really good trick. Look at that. Why is every... it's a little more complicated than that, dude. Since it launched southward, they could not land the booster back at Vandenberg like last time. Oh no, Taco, they could land the booster at Vandenberg. RTLS landings and drone ship landings, the only thing that really constitutes that is, like, what makes the difference between one or the other is the delta V of the rocket. You got to remember, Falcon 9's delta V is going to change depending on how much mass that payload is. Starlink satellites are heavy. And because you have a polar orbit, because you have to use some of your delta V to combat the spinning, it's about 500 meters a second, believe it or not, to do this anti-normal burn this way. You need an extra 500 meters a second delta V to compensate for the fact that you're going into a polar orbit. That inhibits payload mass, and that means the booster, the first stage and the second stage, need to do more work. They need to do more than they know. They need to use more fuel to get those Starlink satellites into the right orbit. That's part of the reason why these Starlink missions out of Vandenberg only have 50 satellites on them. And one going out of the Cape that would go into an inclined trajectory at 50 degrees, those ones would... because it's going with the spin of the Earth instead of trying to combat it perpendicular, those ones you can have more payload mass. Vehicles that launch closer to the equator on a lower inclination trajectory. So when I say inclination, just a quick refresher in case anybody's learning this for the first time. Earth has an equator. The equator is the halfway point between the North and the South Pole. Pretty straightforward stuff, right? Because the Earth is a non-uniform sphere, it's not a sphere, it's kind of like a deflated basketball, and it's spinning like crazy. I mean, how I like to describe Earth, and geologists will probably kick me in the face for this, it's kind of like a big spinning jello mold. So if you picture like wobbly jello and you tried to spin it, it would bulge at the center. It would it would want to bulge out like a deflated piece of sporting equipment, not footballs. Not footballs. Shh. Earth is not football shaped. Shut up. No. So you have a velocity gain imparted on the vehicle because of the non-uniform sphere, because it's an oblate spheroid, right? So that's why the U.S. launch sites are in Florida and, in Texas, right? That's why a lot of the manned space flight because it goes from Florida because the space stations are in a trajectory where everybody can get at. Because it's basically closer to the equator. The ISS being in a trajectory everybody can get at isn't really relevant to what I'm talking about, but sometimes I get my explanations confused. But anyway, because the launch sites closer to the equator are going with the spinning instead of going against it. Now, with that being said, it basically takes the same amount of delta V to get into a polar orbit pretty much no matter where you are. So polar launch sites are kind of all over the place. The U.S. has a polar launch site in Alaska. The Russians have one in Plesetsk, which is like way up north. It's almost in the I think it might be in the Arctic Circle. Let's see, who else? The Europeans have a launch site in Kourou. It's right here. And they can just launch north or east out of there. So Kourou is kind of the best one. You could go either way. Kourou is a really good launch site. Have you run the description past rocket stage? It is a big jello mold, Yarg. But yeah, that's plate tectonics and stuff. There's Kodiak way up in Alaska. Exactly. So polar sites can really kind of be wherever. Equatorial sites... not every satellite's going to go into an perfect polar orbit, and not every site is going to go into an equatorial orbit. So that's why the U.S. has two principal launch sites, one in Vandenberg, one in Florida here. So, yeah, the reason... Sorry, it's still early. I still need my coffee. Kind of mumbling a bit today. It's been a weird week. So the reason why this one RTLS is because it's going into a polar orbit. What is Wallop's purpose? Wallops can do anything. It can get to the ISS. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, you can get to the ISS from anywhere with a strong enough rocket. If we launched a Saturn V out of Kodiak, provided that could even happen, it'd make it to the ISS no problem. It's about the most efficient trajectories here. Off topic, but Jupiter and Saturn as well. Huh? Oh, yeah, of course, Astro. Yeah. But the strange thing is that Earth is the only one with plate tectonics, from what I understand. No other planet has that, which is kind of strange. The reason why Jupiter and Saturn do it is not because of plate tectonics, but because Jupiter and Saturn are just they're gas giants. You ever played the first Halo? You know that big green planet that's in the sky next to the ring? That's a gas giant. It's just a big thing of gas. I don't know, maybe, Synerd. Threshold. Good man. Doesn't Mercury have them? Nope. No. It's weird, dude. Some planet, Earth has plate tectonics. Some planets have magnetic fields, but no plate tectonics. Or it could just be the moon, which is just a big gray floating rock that's orbiting around the Earth. Yeah, the Earth is the only one that's like living and breathing, dude. Mars does not have plate tectonics. A mountain like Olympus Mons cannot exist with plate tectonics, it's cool, man. You guys, if you want to learn more about this, Rocket Sage is a geology professor that streams on Twitch. She streams all this stuff. Dude, she knows rocks like I know rockets. It's really awesome. It really interesting stuff. All it takes with rocks is pressure and time. That and a big goddamn poster. Turns out Andy Dufresne's favorite hobby was toting his wall out in the rec yard. It's big. Biggest mountain in the solar system, Havocs. Yep. Well, she actually has a degree in it, but apart from that, yes. Yeah, Altia, way to make me feel bad. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, at least I'll have a degree. And your kids will be serving my kids at a skiing trip. Yeah, but at least I won't be unoriginal. What, are you gonna come in here? You gonna come in here regurgitating garden wood? You gonna insult my friend? Huh? What did I say? What did I say you'd be up in here regurgitating Gordon Wood? But you forgot about Vickers. No? I just read Vickers, so I'm up on inherited wealth hunting. Anyway, I think other planets have plate tectonics. I have to ask one of the astronomy folks. Go ahead. What movie are you quoting? What frickin' movie do you think I'm quoting? Huh? What'd I say? What'd I say that I'd be up in here regurgitating Goodwill hunting, huh? Drummer. 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 Last? No. Shrek! By the way, did you see that they're making a Departed 2? Why? The Departed. Don't sell yourself short. You have a degree, too. Yeah. My boy EJ's wicked smart. Boy. Now you listen to me. That guy over there, he's not a guy that you can't hit, but he's almost a guy that you can't hit. So I got some news for you. You don't frickin' at him. You understand that? I'll forget your grandmother was so nice to me. Getting into an orbiting Clyde less than your launch latitude is extremely delta V expensive. Getting into a higher inclination orbit. Yeah, yes, I know. You don't need to be Mr. Technical right now. It's early and I haven't had coffee and I haven't gotten a lot of sleep over the last couple of days. Thank you for showing everyone in chat how smart you are. I appreciate it. Dude, Hillness, if we could just have a buddy cop flick with the cop that Mark Wahlberg plays, like, you know, Wahlberg plays the cop from South Boston in The Departed, and he was like the only guy to survive the movie, right? Can we just have a cop flick with him? Wasn't trying to correct you, just adding to the discussion. Why don't you add to this orbit? Got him. I know, of course, but I'm not going to pass up an opportunity to give you crap. It's okay, EJ, I'm not smart. Me neither. Okay. We're a little under halfway to deployment here. Okay, geography lesson. We did geology, now geography. What's that? What's that right there? I'll give you a hint. It's in Peru. What lake is that? Water? That's right. That's Lake Titicaca, the highest lake in the world. It's in the Andes Mountains. The Andes. No problem, Zelda. Yeah. Yeah, Fanta. My theory on chat is they're like mushrooms. Feed them crap and keep them in the dark. There you go. I mean, you never pass up the opportunity to give me crap. Well, I give crap to the people that I like the most, Yarg. So, yeah, now how do you feel? Cool. All right, cool. What's that river right there? See the river? What river is that? The Nile? No. It's the Amazon. The Nile? No. The Tigris? Wrong continent. Damn it. The Thames? You guys suck. Okay, alright. What city is right here? The Microsoft River? What city is right there? DC, London, Rio. If you said Rio, you're wrong. Rio's over here. That's Buenos Aires, Argentina. The Nile? Yes! Yes! Yeah, of course. Remember Buenos Aires. The one the bugs bombed. Yep. Any Starship Troopers fan should know that one, right? Denial? No. Isn't that where the bugs bombed? Yep. Those damn arachnids from Clandathu. It's afraid! Sorry. One GeoGuessr EJ. I've played it before. What city is southernmost? Well, there's the Falkland Islands right there. But, I know there's a city down here, but it's not very big. That is the Styx River. I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all! I'm not actually sure. I don't know what's down here. I mean, I know that Chile... So, the Andes is right here. There's the divide right there. Argentina is on the east, and Chile is on the west. Depends on if you count McMurdo as a city or not. Well, let's reduce it to contiguous South America. So, no Falcons, right? There is a city down here. I just forget where it is. I heard the rumble and looked outside. Missed this one on the calendar. Oh yeah, Doom. They're really getting going. According to Wikipedia, it says Ushuaia. Yep, Argentina. Okay, I can't say that city, so I'm just gonna say Ushenka and call it a day. There's not really much else in the geography thing here. AOS Punta Arenas. Punta Arenas. Okay. How many orbits do you think those failed Starlink satellites took to deorbit? Oh, just one, Synerd. Just one. Oh, yeah. Dude, it's not like Kerbal where you can kind of just keep skirting and going around. Dude, you dip too low in the atmosphere on Earth, you're getting sucked right back into the grav well. Oh, yeah. Not much. Probably one. Oh, there was a signal transition. We just saw the signal relay, Dev. Question about the booster landing. How the frick does the booster decrease its velocity from 100 kph to 0 kph that quickly? Did the ship in the water amortize that much energy? No, Strezelku. It's a rocket engine, man. Rocket engines, dude. Yeah, the Falcon 9 does not weigh nearly as much as it did on liftoff. One, because it doesn't have an upper stage and a payload attached to it. Two, because it has maybe 5% of the fuel that it has and that it had during liftoff. One rocket engine is, dude, I think, look, man, like, I'm gonna try to not screw up this this talk here either. Rocket engines are very, very powerful. I don't think, Strezelku, and this isn't like a knock against you or anything. I don't think people realize how strong these things are. One Merlin 1D, a single one of them, could move a 747. Not for very long because it would run out of fuel. But if you could like turn on infinite fuel and you had a Merlin engine with like a fully loaded 747 with no engines on it, it would be able to take off, provided the Merlin engine could fire for more than like 2 minutes. You know, it could take off. One of them could do that easily. Merlin engines make 1,000 kilonewtons of thrust. That's more than what a 747 makes at full blast. That's more than a 777. That's more than an A380. This is a single rocket engine. The thing about the rocket engines is that they're not very fuel efficient. Now don't get me wrong, they're about as efficient as physics allows us to be, right? But they're a little thirsty. They're a little thirsty. They drink a lot of fuel. So how can it decelerate so fast? The rocket engine is that powerful. So here, I've been trying to come up with better ways to explain like rocket thrust, because I can tell you it makes 1,000 kilonewtons of thrust and people will be like, all right. So, all right, check this out. So let's see. Let's look at sea level thrust. 854, vacuum thrust 981. 192,000 pounds, okay? 192,000 pounds. So this thing pushes up with the same force, right? With the same amount of push-up force as if there was a 192,000 pound block of concrete pushing down on you. So if you had a 192,000 pound block of concrete above you, the force of gravity pushing that down on you is the same amount of force, upward force, that the rocket pushes on the vehicle with. Like, that's a good way to describe it. Like, picture a 192,000 pound block of solid concrete. Whatever's under that thing is going to get squashed because gravity is going to push it into the ground, right? That's how much the rocket pushes with up. That's one. There's 9 of them. So let's just round that number, right? Round that number to 200,000 just for the easy sake of math, right? If you round it to 200,000 pounds of thrust, right? And you times that by 9, that's 1.8 million pounds of thrust. So Falcon 9 pushes up with the same force that a 1.8 million pound block of concrete would push down on something. That's a lot of force, man. That's a lot of power. And somehow they stay stationary in the test stands. Oh yeah, test stands are my favorite, Devlin. I want to make a test stand in KSP, like one where we can install a rocket and whatnot, just to see. Yeah, Strezloku, long story short, it can decelerate like crazy because rocket engines are really freaking strong. And you know what's crazy? Merlin engines aren't even close to the most powerful rocket engine around, dude. They're not even close. One Saturn V first stage engine could make Falcon 9 go up. One. It would have a little. You would lose payload volume, but you could put one F1 engine under there and it would work. Once again, you'd probably half your payload amount, but it would work, which is nuts to me. That's ridiculous. Like the Saturn V pushes up with 7.5 million pounds of force, about 35,000 kilonewtons or 35 meganewtons. 7.5 million. That's like, once again, that would be like trying to lift up a skyscraper. Like that's the weight we're talking about here. It is quite. It's quite. Like, it's mind-boggling numbers. Like, these numbers just don't occur to us in the daily life. Like that's part of what I try to do. I try to explain this stuff, and I try to come up with analogies where you can picture it in your head. Like, the Saturn V is quite literally a skyscraper that's flying into space, and it's about as heavy as one too. How much is that in gigawatts? I'm sure I could do the conversion if you wanted to. Tell me how many houses it can lift, and I will understand. All right, Swishia, let me see if I can find. I can't tell you houses. Like, I don't know the average weight of a house. Here, let's look at a. Like, what's something that we can understand? You know. All right, here. Let's try this. Let me just check on the mission real quick. Flykin, you wanted to see launch, and I will in a moment. But all right, so we're out over the southern Atlantic here, just a little ways east of Argentina, a little ways north of Antarctica. Cars, I say, yeah, a car would be good. So, all right, Swishia, let's think of a car. How about let's take a car that you probably know. All right, let's take one of these guys. How about a Giulia? Okay, that's a beautiful car. I love the name too. Let's see. Let's look at a Giulia. How much does this thing weigh? Okay, so we got a curb weight here. It's about 3,000 pounds or 1,300 kilograms. So 3,000 pounds. Okay, that car, a Giulia, on the tires pushes down with it's 3,000 pounds being pushed into the ground. Right, the car is pushing the tires into the ground. That's how you make traction. Right, with about 3,000 pounds of force. A Merlin makes 200,000 pounds of force. 200,000. So an F-150? Well, that would be an F-150. I would, but yeah, I try to use. I try to, like, once again, I'm trying to think of something that everybody knows. Like, the European viewers might not realize how heavy a freaking pickup truck is, you know? Yeah, so a one Merlin engine, dude, could push 600 Julias up. For how long? I don't know. It depends on how big the fuel tank is, right? 600. The rocket engines are insanely powerful. They make an insane amount of force. Like, you have to make that much force to get out of Earth's grav well. Falcon 9 has 9 of those things. Now I understand. How many iPhones? Yes. Dude, like, Julias are even light. Falcon Heavy could put a tank into space. Anybody ever seen a tank before? And, like, I'm not talking like a light tank either. Falcon Heavy could put a Sherman tank into space. No problem. Sherman tank, Panzer IV, T-34, pick your favorite World War II tank. Falcon Heavy could put one of those into space. That's a lot of power. One Merlin, 600, yes. Yeah, Flykin, that's what I mean about rocket engines being super powerful. That's why the thing can decelerate like that. I mean, they are that freaking powerful. An Abrams? I'm not sure about an Abrams. Let me check. Let's see. Let me see. I'll be able to tell you here in a second. So, Abrams tanks, they are not small. I've stood on one. They're gigantic. They're like almost the size of a train locomotive. They're freaking huge. That's the USS MBT. All right, let's see. Mass, 60 short tons is 54 tons. Falcon Heavy could put an Abrams into space. Yeah. Oh yeah, easily. Oh yeah, with Delta V left over. Abrams is roughly 70 tons loaded. Falcon Heavy could do it. Yeah. It'd probably come back down. It probably wouldn't be able to stay in a stable orbit. SLS could easily put an Abrams into space. Easily. Like, SLS could move 1.5 Abrams tanks. So like probably 2 unloaded. It could probably do it. Yeah, that's the amount of power we're talking about here. Really huge. Got to work with them. They're cool, Astro. You know, in the before times, dude, Das and I got to we were at the Miramar Air Show, and we didn't stream this, unfortunately. Because they wouldn't let us stream the interior of the damn tank. We met up with some Marine Corps reservemen at the Miramar Air Show, and they showed us around the Abrams. And, you know, I was sitting in the gunner's seat, or the loader position, so left seat, right? And the Marine Corps reserveman, he was like, yeah, all right. He's like, what do you want to know? I'm like, dude, everything, I guess? And he's like, all right, I'll teach you how to load this thing. So he taught me how to load the thing, right? So you're sitting left seat. So for you guys, this is backwards. But you're sitting left seat. You go around, you open the ammo door, pull the thing out, pivot it off your leg, and throw it into the breech. And then you kind of just sit there while the gunner does his thing. So, like, I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, am I ever going to need this skill? Do I ever need to learn? Why do I need to learn how to load an Abrams tank? I probably don't. That skill's probably never going to get utilized ever. But also, do you not want to know how to load shells into a tank? Like, you did autonomy on them for military convoys. That's cool, Astro. That's awesome. Yeah, Synerd. Yeah. Well, they don't they don't want to stream it in the tank. But yeah, the tank's a big Faraday cage. You'd probably have some trouble. What are the steering controls? I didn't get to sit in the driver's spot, Sasquatch, but an Abrams tank has controls that are similar to a motorcycle. Yeah, it's a little weird. So you have literally like a almost like a two-handed yoke from an airplane, but it's like a motorcycle. And you have a throttle, right? And then you turn left and right, and that's the track input. Yeah. It's almost like a motorcycle. Sad thing is those boys are out of a job. Marines don't have M1s anymore. Yeah. Yeah, it's all right. So like any other tracked vehicle or like a bulldozer or excavator, it's not like a bulldozer. It's like a motorbike. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like a motorcycle. It's strange. Loading a shell into the 16-inch gun of an IO would be cooler. I mean, Tesla, I know how that works. I've never done it though. I know how it works. How many TOG 2s on it? I don't know. Like, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a motorcycle, which is very weird. You'd think like 2 joysticks, one for each tread, you push the 2 joysticks forward would probably be like the right way to do that. But no, they did that for a certain reason. I mean, tank control systems are very strange. Because trying to get treads to tread is tough. Yeah. The input controls on a lot of tanks. Like on the Sherman, it was 2 levers. Yeah, on a Sherman tank, I know that one. It was 2 levers. So you had, like, you're sitting like this, right? And you had 2 levers right here. And you push both of them forward, right? You push both of them back. That controls that. That controls the tread. So, like, you go forward, you can go back, and then you could shift. But you also have a shifter. It has a transmission. The gearbox on a Sherman is a 2-speed. Thank you, DeBoss Garage. Learn that from there. So, yeah, tank control systems are very strange because treads are strange. If you think about it, how do you get an engine that's constantly outputting RPM? How do you get it to apply to one side, to one tread or another? And it's one heck of a differential. You have to use a mallet to manipulate the clutch. Yeah, right? Sile, did you ask another question? Theoretically, could advanced future civilizations be able to manipulate Earth's grav well by messing somehow with the Earth's core? I guess, yeah, sure. There's nothing to my knowledge, and keep in mind I'm not a physicist, but there's nothing in my knowledge that says you couldn't do that. We would need to have like Forerunner capability from Halo, you know? Yeah, I saw the Ripsaw, Marcel. Yeah, the Ripsaw is cool. It's a cool tank. CO2 scrubbers, Zeldacraft. They just use CO2 scrub filters. They have to replace them every once in a while. I'm buying a basic car. I want a Leaf. Opinion. Oop, that was the desktop. Sawyer, why? Why do you want a Nissan Leaf? Bro, you want a car or something that gets 30 miles to the gallon? Here. You want something that gets 30, 35, 40 miles to the gallon? Here's your answer. There you go. Right there. That thing with a 2.3 in it, fuel economy for days. What the hell's the matter with you? Fuel economy for days, bro. And it's not just the Ranger either. The S10 does the same thing because it has an Iron Duke engine in it. Gas is expensive because reasons. You want electric. Did the Marines tell you why the rounds are loaded into the ammo rack pointing to the rear? Ergonomics mostly, and also the magazines are... There's like a hatch, Flykin, that goes to the ammo rack. So you have to open up like a big armored door. It's behind you. It would be right here. You have to open a big armored door, and you have to pull the shell out of the magazine, and then load it. Yeah, it's for compartmentalization and ergonomics, because if the shell is facing forward, how are you going to pull the shell out? And you're like, if it's backwards, you can pull it out, pivot it, and then throw it right in. I'm glad to see you're disappointed in your opinion. Yeah, of course I am. Wait until Cybertruck comes out. I mean, yeah, you could wait until Cybertruck comes out and pay 50, 60 G's for one. Or you could go find a Gen 2 Ranger that gets 30 miles to the gallon and costs $500. If someone gifted you a Mach-E, would you use it? I guess, J-Speed, yeah. The Havoc's Abrams have a blowout hatch. And once again, I learned all about this. Abrams have a blowout hatch, so here, let me show you. It's on the top. If we can find a picture of one of these bad boys from the top, it's actually really smart. So I'm just trying to see if we can get a picture of one from the sky, I suppose. There are hatches. See them right there? I mean, keep in mind, this is just Camelot. It's only a model. Here we go. See those hatches right there? The magazine for the Abrams is right here, and it's literally inside of an armored box. Now, here's the thing. These hatches right here are lighter than the hatch that goes into the crew compartment. So if an Abrams gets ammo racked, if like a shell hits here and starts blowing up the rounds behind you, they blow out. They blow up and out. And they don't blow into the crew compartment. Yeah. These are it's basically a check valve. If the magazine overpressurizes, those two hatches blow up. They open and the explosion goes up instead of into the crew. What's that? I forget, dude. That has something to do with the It's something to do with the gases in the cannon. The Abrams has a smoothbore cannon. It's not rifled. And somebody here that probably knows more about it than me could tell you what that thing is up on the front. A design choice written in blood. Yeah. Yeah. Can't tell because tanks are not in Tarkov. There's T-72s in Tarkov, Reverol. What are you talking about? AOS Meridius, 4 minutes until ignition. Alright. Boss, last. Yeah, you and like 600 other people. What's up? This tiny motor is more powerful than your car. Have you seen Koenigsegg Electron with 330 horsepower and the size of an Xbox? Yeah, that's neat. Tessa, I'll be honest. Koenigsegg's don't do anything for me. It's not that I hate them. They're really cool cars, and the engineering... There we go. They're cool cars. They just don't do anything for me. Yeah, no, I appreciate that the engineering is fantastic. It's amazing.
Progress.
Heck with the car. I want the motor for your bike. Yeah, neat. No, are you familiar with the Polaris MRZR? Sort of like a militarized Jeep. Let me see. Oh, it's just a side-by-side. That's kind of cool. I mean, not gonna say that I wouldn't have fun with that. It's pretty neat. I know EVs are all the rage and I love my Model 3, but I want that C8 Z06. Yep. Why isn't the engine nozzle not red? Because it's not on. They're chilling down the engine right now, guys. So what they're doing is they have pre-valves on this Merlin vacuum, and you can see one of the vent lines right there. What they're doing is they're putting liquid oxygen into the motor to keep it to get it nice and cool. This does two things. First of all, you got to thermally condition the engine, because if you have cold propellants going into a warm engine, they will evaporate. It'll turn to gas. And it's not a gas-powered rocket engine. It's a liquid fuel rocket engine. If you have gas going into your rocket engine, well, your rocket engine has the potential of doing something called a hard start. A hard start is like backfiring in a car, but for a rocket engine. The equivalent would be like turning your car on with the transmission in drive and your foot on the accelerator pedal and turning the key. Now, most cars have systems that prevent you from doing that. And the thermal conditioning prevents them from doing that with this engine. Yeah, it probably wouldn't end well. So what they do is they start to trickle the propellants in. They use the pressure from the ullage pressure from the fuel tank and the oxidizer tank and some pre-valves to start flowing the propellants into the engine and basically get it all the way to the injector plate, which is the fuel injector. And that's what all this stuff is. It's all solid oxygen that's coming out of the vent line. And basically the second part that this thing does is it primes the engine. It basically makes sure that when you go to start it, it turns on.
I Still Love You, and had a successful second stage MVAC engine burn. Coming up in a few seconds, we'll have the second stage MVAC engine burn, which will be kicked off by SES2 or second engine start 2, quickly followed by SECO 2 or second engine cutoff 2.
Yeah,
this
is just going to be
expected to last just about 2 seconds, and so we'll wait on that. Right now, the second stage is just to the east of Madagascar, heading towards Sri Lanka, and there's a view of the MVAC engine that we are expecting to start back up.
MVAC startup and shut
shut
down.
off.
And there was successful startup and shutdown. Gonna wait for confirmation of a good orbit on the second stage. And so after this, we are going to coast
You're
for
changing
a
your
little bit longer
eccentricity with
before
this,
we
bro, Andy.
actually start to deploy our 50 Starlink satellites. But while we wait for that confirmation, I do want to take this time to correct something I said earlier. The white clouds that we saw around the vehicle prior to liftoff is the chilled gas above the LOX tank liquid surface that we vent to maintain pressure in the tanks. So basically, we vent gaseous oxygen, not liquid oxygen.
This guy engineers. This is the guy here.
Again, we are waiting on
Nominal orbit insertion.
that call out right there.
NOI.
Orbital insertion, which confirms that we are in the position we need to be in for the second stage. With that, we're going to take another short break and join you back here just after the T+1 hour mark to catch payload deploy. We will see you soon.
Do they burn at partial throttle settings? No. Sasquatch, like, okay. So there's something that doesn't really get talked about much in the spaceflight industry, and we don't really touch too much on it. But hard starting a rocket engine is very, very bad for it. So how does that pertain to throttle? Like, what okay, so what? Who cares? Well, remember how I said they trickle those propellants into the rocket engine, right? That makes it so it doesn't hard start, so you don't get liquid evaporating into gas and then going into the engine, because that's going to do something in the combustion chamber that you didn't engineer for, because it's like I said, a liquid fuel rocket engine. It's not a gas fueled rocket engine. It's liquid fueled. You don't want gases going into your liquid fuel rocket engine. The only thing that should be going into that rocket engine is liquid oxygen and kerosene, and that's it. And T-tab, of course, the ignition fluid. But, so, Yeah, hard starts are something that can really damage the rocket. It basically blows the engine up. It's going to do something that you don't want. So when they go to fire up the rocket engine, because they don't want the rocket engine to hard start, they start it the same way every time. And that basically starts it, gets the rocket up to 100% throttle, and then they throttle it to where they need to go. So like if you were playing Kerbal, for instance, it would be like hitting Z, going full throttle, spacebar, rocket engine turns on, and then hitting control to throttle it where you need to go. Every rocket engine does that. And when they start it with the throttle at full, because that gets the engine, that basically makes sure that it's going to start in the same way every time. Now, okay, why don't they start it at like 50% throttle every time? Well, if you do, you run the risk of hard starting the engine, because the engine was designed to make a certain amount of thrust, right? Throttling a rocket engine is not easy. That's not an easy thing to do. Just because, like, throttling a rocket engine would be like as hard as throttling a fire hose. Only a rocket engine has two fire hoses connected into it, basically. It would be like trying to change the residual pressure to finely tune a fire hose to get you to shoot water like into a freaking window this big away from like 50 feet. They're very difficult to throttle. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're a firefighter and you know what a pumper truck does, you can do that with the fire hose, right? But there's some solid oxygen. That's probably solid. It could be helium. It could be nitrogen. It could be still oxygen. What they did was they dried the engine. They purged it with all of its. They got the liquid oxygen out of it. I'll say why in a moment. Ilya, a lot more satellites from what I understand. But basically, Sasquatch, they start the engine at full throttle to make sure it starts the same way every time and then throttle it to desired setting. But even deep throttling a rocket engine, if you didn't do your engineering homework and you try to deep throttle an engine, it'll explode. It'll just blow up. Now, here, I can actually show you an example of what happens if, like, for instance, what happens if you don't get some of that math right. Here, check this out. This was Northrop Grumman doing an Omega test here. Let me get to the good stuff. There's flame out. So see the nozzle? Nozzle goes all the way back to right there. Let me just see if I can find it. Oh yeah, there it is. Watch. So throttling the rocket engine can mess with it. Now, don't get me wrong. That's not what happened here. Watch. That didn't work, right? That's not what happened here, but that is a result that could happen from deep throttling a rocket engine. It could blow up. Like, most of the time, if you're doing anything but pegging the throttle on a rocket engine and you try to like throttle it, unless you took that into account, it's just going to explode. I wish that was my engineering homework. So now, what happened with that thing? Why did it pop? Well, it popped because Northrop Grumman took that nozzle and they optimized it to work up there and not down here. So if you fired it for a sustained period of time down here, it's kind of like the same phenomenon that would happen if you throttle a rocket engine. The nozzle was vacuum optimized, and I can get into vacuum optimized nozzles like that one right there if you wanted to learn about that. But long story short, literally doing anything but pegging the throttle when you start could make the engine do that.
Pacific time from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California.
40.
We landed our first stage for the 4th time, and we're just now coming out of our second and final coast phase.
All right.
On screen right now is a view of the second stage Merlin vacuum engine.
Now, I was talking a little bit earlier about how they purged out the engine. every time you fire a rocket engine, if it's using liquid oxygen, you have to find, unless it's a one-time use motor, and that thing is capable of restarting, SpaceX will probably deorbit the second stage. You got to purge the engine out because liquid oxygen, really, really corrosive stuff. Oxygen oxidizes things. I know. Cool concept, right?
I was mentioning.
And what you got to do is they'll use helium to get all of this stuff out of here, to get all of the liquid oxygen and gaseous oxygen out of the motor. They basically purge it out with gases, and that's what that big snowflake thing is off the side of the motor. You're really good at explaining this. Have you ever considered
Earlier in the
teaching a
webcast,
course?
we mentioned
I do.
that
Every
these
day here,
operate at
Astro.
about 550 kilometers in altitude. It actually takes a couple of weeks for the Starlink satellites to use their onboard thrusters to get to their operational altitude. So once we see them deploy from the second stage, they'll kind of...
Second stage is toast, Ilya. They'll deorbit it and it'll burn up. Yeah. No, the second stage on these things, unfortunately, aren't reusable. That's what Starship is supposed to fix. So they get the fairings in the first stage back, which is pretty good. All right, stand by for deploy here. This is 52 pickup in space. Watch, they're just going to let the tensioner rod go, and the satellites will just... Wait for it. So watch, the satellites are all stacked on top of each other like a deck of cards, and they basically have a tension rod, and when the tension rod releases, the satellites will just separate.
For those that are interested,
There it goes.
Starlink deploy confirmed.
And just as I was saying that, the Starlink payloads on screen, you can see them separating themselves from the second stage, and off they go.
That's a really good shot of deploy. Yep, see there's two stacks of
So
them.
with that successful deployment of our 50 Starlink satellites, that's going to bring our webcast to a close today. I want to thank the Range and Federal Aviation Administration for supporting today's mission. And of course, thank you to all of our viewers and all of our Starlink customers using our service at this time.
Thank you, Andy.
If you are interested in signing up for Starlink, head on over to starlink.com. But thank you again for joining us, and hope you all have a great weekend.
Is there a video where you see how the engine burns down? What do you mean, Ilya? The deorbit burn? SpaceX never shows the deorbit burn. Even with Dragon, they really don't show it because there's no external cameras. But the first stage, hell yeah, I could show you that if you want to see that. Hold on one second. Here. Here, this is a shot by my buddy Dr. WD40. He's a Twitch streamer that he does IRL streaming, but he also gets launch footage. So this is from a couple of years ago. So there's Falcon 9 going up, right? And then, so there's your first stage separating. This is the quickest footage I could find, guys. I know there's better footage. There's better footage that WD is posted. So there's the first stage going back. Actually, you know what? WD has better footage, but let's go right here. All right, here we go. Let's get the footage from CSG2. Watch this. Can we acknowledge how freaking amazing this is? It's hovering, not moving. Yeah. Airspeed isn't ground speed, Flykin. Yeah, planes can do that too. True story. If it's windy enough out, a plane can just stay stationary. Yeah. It's kind of nuts. So, Ilya, watch this. So Falcon 9's going up. It's doing its thing. Right? And here's the separation. Watch. That's upper stage ignition right there. And you can see the first stage is in the second stage plume here. Now the first stage turns on. And it goes back to the launch site right there. This was from the CSG2 mission, guys. This is just a good picture of it. That's not from on the rockets. The mission that just happened, the Starlink mission, was successful, just in case anybody's wondering. So yeah, first stage starts slowing down.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Now, once again, I can't get you an entry burn from the second stage, but I can get you an entry burn from the first stage. Here, first stage is coming down right there. Watch. Those little puffs of gas is the RCS doing its thing. Nitrogen cold gas thrusters. Watch. Hey, Lig, 48 monther. Watch. There's your entry burn, and there's your heat shield. Now, is that some sci-fi stuff or what?
That's protecting it. Can you believe that?
Yeah, see, WD knows. WD knows. He knows. Yep. And then the booster uses its grid fins and just kind of comes back down and lands. Watch. Here, ready? Yeah, I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, dude, but yeah. Look at how bright. That should tell you how bright this is. This was filmed during the day, guys. CSG2 was in the afternoon. It should tell you how bright these plumes are. Look what it's doing to the camera aperture. Pretty crazy, huh? Awesome footage. Mind sharing the link? Yeah, sure, man. When you say they make it look really easy, why specifically is this hard to achieve? What did they get and do right? Well, Sile, try to land something in KSP with a rocket motor. Try to do it. Try to do it as smooth as they do it with Falcon 9. So basically just down to the landing site. Try to land something in KSP. That should give you a good indication as to how hard this is. Now, on top of that, remember what I told you about throttling rocket engines. Throttling rocket engines is very difficult. So, Merlin engines, the ones that Falcon 9 uses, when that thing goes into land, you don't have 0 to 100% throttle. You can't do that with a rocket engine. Now, like I said, rocket engines are hard to throttle. Why are they hard to throttle? Well, if you're not making a big enough explosion, if you're not maintaining a high enough combustion chamber pressure, and when you're down near the surface, there's atmospheric pressure. If the pressure goes down enough, the atmosphere will go into the engine. It'll go up the nozzle into the throat, and you'll get cavitation inside of the engine. That means you're getting differential pressure inside of the combustion chamber. And the easy way to describe it is the rocket engine turns into a flamethrower. It just throws flames out the bottom. Flamethrowers don't make thrust. So when you go to try doing something like this in KSP, you can't throttle below like 35%. So constrict the throttle on the engine from 30 to 100% and then try to land it. That's the real problems that you have. Every motor in KSP is deep throttleable. Every single one of them, which is not true in real life. Some rocket engines are just 100%. You peg the throttle and that's it. The shuttle motors, for instance, can only go down to 66% before they'll just not work. You have to maintain your combustion chamber pressure. So how do you maintain combustion chamber pressure? If you can maintain your combustion chamber pressure and somehow get the engine to put out a different amount of thrust, then congratulations. You just figured out something that's extremely difficult to solve. So generally when you throttle the rocket engine down, your combustion chamber pressure goes down. If the pressure goes down, you're going to get cavitation inside of it because the explosion is not enough to fill that thing up. And if the explosion isn't enough to fill up the combustion chamber, like I said, your rocket engine won't make thrust. It'll just be a flamethrower. Pintle injectors. I'm getting to it. So, So how does the Merlin 1D? It's able to throttle below 40%. It's able to deep throttle. How did they solve that problem? Well, their fuel delivery system inside of the Merlin is it's a radial fuel injector. It's called a pintle injector. So if you think about just a regular rocket engine, you have the power head, so your injector plate, and you shoot fuel axially. So the rocket engine is facing this way, and you shoot fuel axially into the combustion chamber. That's how kind of the garden variety rocket engines work. Liquid fuel rocket engines. Solids work a little bit different. The Merlin engine has a pintle injector. So SpaceX has the combustion chamber right here on the Merlin engine, and the fuel goes down, and then it sprays axially. It sprays out to the sides. That was the way SpaceX was able to solve that throttleability problem, by how they deliver the fuel. So they can maintain a pretty good combustion chamber pressure because the fuel is being sprayed on the sides of the combustion chamber instead of down parallel to the walls of the combustion chamber. And that's able to keep the explosion good enough to be able to throttle the engine. It maintains combustion chamber pressure because you're spraying the fuel all over the sides instead of just spraying down the combustion chamber. Now, don't get me wrong, the Merlin still has its limits. It still has its limits. It can't go below like 35 from what I've been told. I know it can throttle down to 40 at the very least, which is still a monumental achievement. I mean, even today, there's not many engines that can do that. The B3U on New Shepard can do that, and an RL10 can do that, and that's about it. There's not many other super throttleable engines like that. So that's how they solve that problem. But even then, SpaceX has to start at 100 and then ramp that throttle down. But yeah, the pintle injector is how they do it. They have a radial fuel injector instead of an axial fuel injector. So that's not a SpaceX idea, believe it or not. Pintle injectors, yeah, here, I'll show you what Falcon 9 share. Falcon 9 can trace its lineage to certain things. Now, I know a lot of you probably already know this. But the Falcon 9 actually has, well, great-grandpa. Check this out. So, what do you mean, Falcon? Well, SpaceX didn't come up with a radial fuel injector for a throttleable rocket engine. They didn't come up with a pintle injector. The pintle injector's first implementation was this. Falcon 9 can trace its lineage to the lunar descent module. Why? Well, what do you mean? Why that? Well, that's landing on a surface, isn't it? They needed to be able to throttle that thing to be able to land correctly on the moon. Because you can't just you can't deep throttle a regular rocket engine. The LMDE, that thing right there, see that right there? The descent engine, lunar module descent engine, LMDE. That thing has a pintle injector in it because that's how they needed to be able to throttle this thing when they were going to do precision landings on the moon. Falcon 9's great-grandpa is that thing, believe it or not. Speaking of the lunar lander, any ideas on where I can find ideas to do landing simulations on the moon from a dynamics and controls perspective? I was thinking of implementing some sort of combination of adaptive and intelligent control. Orbiter will do it, Astro. There is a lunar landing simulator for Orbiter. Yeah. Or you could use RSSRO with KRPC or KOS. Yeah. During stage 2 separation, is there enough air to hear the engine if you were at the same height? Yeah, there's a little bit of air up there, Jackery. Yeah. If there was like a microphone, and don't get me wrong, SpaceX does have microphones on the second stage. But and that's not anything new. Most rockets do. Most rockets have a microphone somewhere. You would more be hearing the vibrations Not the engine itself, but the vibrations that's caused by the engine. Hello?
My pitos are moldy.
Okay.
I'm upset.
All right.
Do you want something for dinner? You want pizza or something?
Yeah, let's just get pizza. Make it easy.
Alright. You think they'll deliver?
Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't they?
Alright.
You want Chroma Pizza or Domino's?
I was gonna do Domino's.
That's fine.
Alright.
Sweet. RT, you want pizza too? I mean, you could always order it. The reason why we're ordering now is because we got another foot of snow today. Another foot of snow. Yep, 30 centimeters for the metric, folks. Yep, that's good. Gotta go shovel that. You want Chroma Pizza? Yep. Can this be done from a research perspective? Thanks, I'll look into it. I mean, anything can be done from a research perspective. What are you trying to research, right? Like, yeah, seriously. There was 2 inches of concrete here. All you got was rain. Yeah, so throttleable rocket engines, man. It's not easy. Think about like a fire hose that firemen would use. How do you throttle that thing? How do you do that? The pressure is so great. It's designed to shoot water like 50 feet up in the air. How do you throttle that? Well, to be honest, a fire hose with a pumper truck uses a pressure regulator to do it. They use a pressure regulator. Some rocket engines are pressure fed like that with a regulator system in. It really depends on what you're trying to do. But yeah, the way I like to describe it is a fire hose. Everybody's seen a fire hose. It's much easier to visualize in your mind. Like, you know, think about like a fire hose. You need a bunch of people holding that thing together. One guy can't really take the fire hose and be like, "Ugh." It doesn't work that way. Rocket engines are kind of like that. First of all, don't hold the rocket engine and fire it. That would be bad. If anybody ever does that, just don't do that. Don't be near it when it goes off. Yeah, that's just item 1 there. A perfect idea. All I can picture, Devlin, is like a kid with an Estes motor holding it in his hand. Just, you know, like, you don't want to do that. So, yeah, the throttleable engines, dude, it's tough. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, guys. That's been happening a lot lately. I got a lot on my mind. Yeah, Synard, yeah, the moose. I remember that. Man out of orbit successfully. But yeah, I always thought that was a cool fact that that Falcon 9, the Merlin 1D, if you look at lineage, has a very similar pintle injector to the LMDE. Yeah. Falcon 9's engines are based off of the Lunar Lander's engines. And before you say, like, nah, what do you mean? It's based off of the lunar engines. What are you talking about? Those are two completely different engines made by 2 completely different companies. Well, skeptics, I got you. So the LMDE was made by a company called TRW. TRW made the lunar descent engine. There was a guy that worked for TRW in the 90s. The guy's name is Tom Mueller. Tom Mueller worked with pintle injectors. He was the guy that learned. He didn't invent the LMDE. Tom Mueller's not that old. But he worked at TRW in the 90s, and he studied the pintle injector systems and became like the foremost expert on stuff like that. And Elon Musk hired him to be their principal propulsion engineer for Falcon 9. So yes, Falcon 9 can trace its roots directly to the LMDE pintle injector. Yeah, because Tom worked for the company that invented the LMDE in the first place. Yeah, that guy's cool. Tom Mueller also races cars for fun. Yep. Yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. Yep. ID number 1. Indeed. Yeah. 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 So yes, it absolutely can. And this is not like something that's like hearsay or something. ULA, the United Launch Alliance, actually has like Tori Bruno every once in a while posts rocket. He posts rocket tree lineages. Here, he's the CEO of ULA, and ULA is SpaceX's competition technically. Now, don't get me wrong; it's friendly competition, right? But every once in a while, he posts the rocket lineage tree. Hell yeah, Tori Bruno, real life cowboy, astronaut, millionaire. He's not an astronaut, rocket engineer. Good enough. He posts the lineage tree, and on ULA, which is SpaceX's competition, they have the LMDE leading to the Merlin 1D development, which is really cool. Yeah. Really interesting stuff. Here, let me see if I can just find that picture. ULA rocket lineage. Bingo, here it is. Here, let's take a look. Yep, see? Merlin program. Injector from the LMDE. Fast Track, NASA small engine development. That's what Tom worked on. Tom worked on Fast Track. Merlin turbo pump from Barbara Nichols in 2002, and that created the Merlin in 2006. Pretty cool, huh? See? The Falcon can trace its lineage directly to the lunar module, which is really cool. I always thought that was really neat. Yep, and they put the Soviet program on there as well. This is an older timeline. They have more updated ones. This is the easiest one to find, though. H1 engine. The H1 engine actually, it's interesting that they didn't show it unless I'm looking at this wrong. The H1 engine was designed for the Thor missile, and then it found its way into the Saturn 1, and then the Saturn 1B. Yep, and then the H1 was on Atlas AC-1, Atlas Centaur. Yep, and it was used pretty much until the RD-180 replaced it in the 90s. Yeah, Bill, for sure. Yeah. That's the hardest part, dude. So how do you maintain that type of pressure when you're throttling the engine? It's really difficult to do. It would be like trying to get a car to go different speeds while the gas pedal is on the floor. How do you get the car to go different speeds when the throttle is pegged? That's what throttling a rocket engine is like. How do you do that? Or you're going to have to adjust something else, you know? CVT. That's, yeah, that does that. And yes, there are solutions with the rocket engines, yeah. I hate them, but it's the right answer. That was more a rhetorical question, Synard, to get people to understand what throttling a rocket engine is like. I don't think a CVT will do too well inside of a rocket engine. With that being said, some rocket engines have gearboxes. LR-87s have a gearbox in them. RL-10s have gearboxes in them. Yeah, there are rocket engines with transmissions attached. That's how they get the turbopumps to work. You basically power one of the turbopumps. It has a turbo on it, and then there's a gear. There's a transmission that's attached, and it turns the other turbo pump for fuel and oxidizer. But anyway. think that's everything. So, sorry, I was reading something. I mean, with RCS, they do what they had to do with the soft, which Cam will literally turn the engine on and off to vary thrust. Yeah, but they modulate thrust for other reasons, dude. The RCS thrust modulation is for thermal. It's for thermal, and I mean also precision control, but it's more about thermals. You'll cook the rocket engine because there's no way to shed the heat. And RCS is pressure fed. Yeah, that's your actuation mechanism. Anyway, it's 1:30. You guys want to... That's going to do it for the launch. Let's see. What do I feel like playing? I mean, we got a little bit of time. I think I'll probably do Space News today at like 5 or something. Yeah, I don't have Beam installed right now, Dread. I uninstalled it to... I think I installed it for Tarkov or something. I don't know. Makes me wonder if anyone's ever done a regeneratively cooled RCS, bipropellant LCS thruster, and used the NTO, not the hydrazine for obvious reasons. Russia's Proton rocket has a staged combustion cycle, hypergol. Yeah. I think it's like a RD, what is it, RD 0158 or something? Yeah, let's go mess around in KSP, dude. I don't know what I'll do, but we'll figure out something. Or we could play Satisfactory. I haven't played Satisfactory in a hot minute, dude. Or we could play Cities. Yeah. Man, dude, I don't know about you guys. Like, side note, it's been really hard to focus over the past couple of days. My analogies and my usual like teaching spiels and stuff have been not as good lately. Yeah, I'm having trouble explaining things because yeah, there's a lot on my mind. I mean, I'm sure you guys understand. Yeah, it's like, dude, yesterday, man, I was so tired by the end of Space News. I'm just like, I'm just gonna go lie down. You know, it's yeah, it's been hard, man. And don't get me wrong, I know there's some folks around that have it a lot more difficult than us, and that's what bothers me. But you know, yeah. But on the other hand, I really want to play Hearts of Iron 2. Like, I'm really into that right now, but I don't think it would be appropriate at all. You know? And I also kind of want to play Tarkov too, but also I don't really think I should. I don't think that would be appropriate at all. It sucks because I was just figuring out how to get everything done right in that game. You know? Yeah. And like, dude, I try to make, you know, I try to be a little bit lighthearted about it, but and I was talking with somebody about it on Twitter, and then you remember that time where I was talking to a guy about Falcon 9's trajectory, and he thought I was being negative? Yeah, that happened again on Twitter. I don't know why I even bother. Shouldn't even bother talking on Twitter. Every time I do, somebody takes what I say in the complete, like, missed the point completely. So, less than 2 Infinity Mile. Play another Paradox strat game like Stellaris? I don't know, man. Yeah, if you want to go look at, like, tweets and replies, dude, you see exactly what I'm talking about. I don't want to show it on stream. Like, I don't even know why I try to make people feel better. And no, EJ, you're not. You're a bad person. It's like, yep, all right. Okay. Never jump into the zoo. Yeah, I don't know why I still do, Blue. I mean, but then again, I have to, you know, I'm a content creator. I have to keep my social media presence up for brand recognition or some nonsense like that. Yeah. Yeah, K3, don't get me wrong. Dude, I don't have Facebook. I barely check Instagram. I only go on Twitter for the space news. And even then, like, space news is kind of